All right. Okay, we're up. Hello. So, on the screen right now is today's page, the secret subway scientists. This is from a suggestion by Allie, Allie D. And below the city in subways, there are secret mad scientists inventing useless things. So there we go. Thank you, Allie. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. So, yeah, this is a fun one to do. I just drew it in ballpoint pen, an orange ballpoint pen, hence it being the color of orange. And yeah, so it came together pretty quickly and good feelings. Yesterday was a great stream for me. It was a lot of fun. I hope people enjoyed it, had a good time. I know I did. It's nice to be able to talk to a bunch of people and sort of say, hey, here's what we do. That's nice. And here's how you can do it too, which makes it nicer. All right. I'm going to switch over to the camera. Not this camera. Oh, silly business. All right. So here's the overhead. Hi, Linda. How you doing? Hiya, Tim. So I've got some things in front of me right now to work on. Lori and I were at a place, and we were getting some bedding because we put together the grandkids' room upstairs. We did this whole switching around of the household, and then by doing so, we needed to get new bedding for our one guest room, and so we did. But while we were there, I found 4 large canvases. Well, large, medium, and I don't actually know how big they are. 20 by 40. They're 20 by 40. It says it on the side. So I've got 4 of these 20 by 40 or canvas surfaces, and I need to figure out what I'm going to put on them. So one of the things that I do is that when I'm doing idea generation stuff, when I'm working on trying to figure out where to go with things, I've got a sheet of paper here, but I think what I'm going to do is kick out my large sketchbook and we'll go from there. Ink on paper. Hey! Of all the inventions of the last 100 years, the dry erase board has to be the most remarkable. Really? I don't know. For some reason, it just seems to be that whatever is discovered from that is just going to get wiped off into the annals of history. Yeah. Dry erase boards are pretty good. I like them. I got a couple in the studio here. That's how I schedule myself. All right, I got you. No, I got it. I'm just trying to be silly. It's hard to get things over my head. I'm tall. Anyhow, so I've got this big sketchbook, and I tend to do when I'm working out larger projects. This is where I'll do all this idea generation, and really go after something. But I thought we might use this bad boy to try to sort out some ideas about these 4 20 by 40 images, these 4 20 by surfaces. Welcome aboard, by the way, Robert. So, yeah, I don't really have necessarily got a plan at this point. All I do know is that I've got dust and things underneath the paper. All I do know is that I have 4 canvases of uniform size that I want to do something uniform with. So that's the extent of my planning on it. I thought maybe one of the things I would try in my never-ending, constant ways of trying to do new comics, one of the things that I thought I might try would be to tell a story using these 4 canvases. And in order to do so, we sort of got to get an idea generated here and go from there. So, throwing caution to the wind, I thought that I would stay open and receptive to whatever suggestions might come my way. This is something I was talking about yesterday during the stream. Hey, Marsh, how you doing? One of the things I was talking about yesterday was staying open and receptive to whatever information and whatever ideas come your way. I talked about having little sketchbooks or notebooks in order to keep track of these things. Example 1. Example B. Yeah. And, it's like the one-page suggestion idea. I get some random suggestions from that, like the mad scientist in the subway tunnels inventing nonsense. I had honestly considered for the page that I posted today putting this inside the Subway restaurant. This is what I'm talking about being receptive to random ideas and just following them wherever they may lead. Because, why would it be in a Subway restaurant? So, but that's the sort of thing that's fun to try out. So I highly encourage this still and I'm always going to, I think, for people to, make notes of whatever random thought might come to mind or whatever random bits of information that they come across. That's why my sketchbook is as crazy as it is because I'm just putting whatever I find interesting in my sketchbooks without being concerned about finished images. And that helps me a lot. I mean, it really keeps the possibilities really flowing along. So, the comic jam is the same sort of a thing that if you are able to attend a comic book jam, you can experience new directions in storytelling because of the randomness of having, one person does the first panel and signs their name in the back, slides it in the middle of the table, and the next person does the next, for however many until the page is done. And because of that, you'll have people that, for whatever reason, they need to have penguins in whatever they're drawing. And so now you've got to figure out, you've started off doing a epic space battle, and now there's penguins involved, a penguin spaceship being piloted entirely by penguins. Clearly that might not be something that the average person would think of, but you've got to try to, if you're the person following that introduction into a panel, into the narrative, and your panel's next, you've got to figure out where to go with that. I mean, honestly, you could have that penguin spaceship blown up at the next panel, but that's kind of defeats the point of, being open and receptive to these kinds of new ideas. It's the same as improv. When you're doing improv in whatever setting, and somebody says, "Hi, I'm a dentist," and the other person says, "No, thank you," and closes the door in front of the dentist, they completely miss the point of improv. Or, because, "Hi, I'm a dentist," and the next person says, "And I'm desperate to get a teeth cleaning," and then the narrative carries on. So that's it. That's also my same mentality when it comes towards comics. So, Marsh was going to suggest a one page yesterday, and I think we got sidetracked. Or Marsh, did you suggest it and I forgot to write it down? Either way, if you want to throw it at me now, we're just going to do that as today's page. Marsh says, "I love randomness and experimentation, but sometimes when I play in that realm, I run into a brick wall of feeling it's a bit meaningless and aimless, and I don't love that feeling." Well, maybe you just need more time with it. Maybe you just need a little more. It's like when you read a mystery play, right? When you read a mystery play, or whether it's a novel or you're watching a film or it's or it's a play, it sets up the sprinkles along the way. And the joyous part of your detective type is that they're trying to tie all those together in what may very, very clearly seem to be completely abstract and nonsensical. You got to have one underlying recurring factor, and generally in most of these murder mysteries, it's murder. So if you can find that one tying principle, all of the random errata that's on either side of that's the stuff that makes it interesting. And how do you bring it all together is where you need to really think towards the culminative point, that point where all of those story parts start to stitch up. And if you have a character who's in a conversation with something, and let's say, okay, penguins is a recurring theme that has appeared a couple of times in it, and it doesn't make any sense. And you've had one character that's been involved in the narrative, and you may not have shown the front of their shirt in an image, thinking visually. So then when you do this sort of summation narrative, where you look back on all the parts of it that start to tie together, that person having a penguin on their t-shirt, and so all of these penguin references or whatever nonsense tone might be referred back and forth to it, it's all relating to the fact that somebody's trying to remember the killer was a person who was wearing a penguin shirt. It's something as silly and as loose as that. Now, the more refined you make it, and the more you tie it together, then the more sense it's going to be. There is a comic called Next Wave by Warren Ellis and Stuart Immonen, and there is so much nonsense in that book. Like, it is so much absolute nonsense, and yet, as we get to the close of the series, all the things that have been happening over the course of these 12 issues, the realization is that all of it, this one character who's been chasing the protagonist through the entire thing, you realize by the end of it that the organization, the company that he works for, he works for something else, but it's a subsidiary of that company, and that company has been responsible for all the madness. All the crazy things that have been happening have been loosed upon the world by that company. That's an abstract, and yet that abstract idea allows all of these really silly things that are these really silly ingredients thrown into the pot. Well, now it becomes a stew. Now it starts to come together, right? So it's not lost. Something's not lost because, you're experimenting and you're being random with your storytelling and your approach to it. When it comes to the randomness visually, why is it like this for this part of it and then like this for that part of it? Well, you could bump it back into these are different realities or something. Like there's always a workaround is what I'm trying to say. There's always sometimes we just have to sit back and consider what is the tying factor? What is the knot that I can put in the string? Not only in art but in life, some endings can bring new beginnings. Yeah, excellent. That's excellent. That's perfect. Yeah, right on, Susanna. I appreciate that. That's yeah, I completely agree. That you got to hit to a certain point. Look at the Harry Potter franchise, and if you haven't read Harry Potter yet, or don't know how things go, I'm going to ruin it for you. I apologize. But there's one. Well, I'll do it in an abstract way. There's one character who has at times been a villain and at other times has just been an antagonist in the scenarios that present our protagonists. And you realize as we get to the culmination of the larger arc that there's a really solid reason for that. And all of the past actions of said character you can view them in a completely new and fresh context now and realize why some of those behaviors were there. That's lovely. That's absolutely lovely storytelling. I don't know if that was plotted from the beginning or not, but it's really nice to have an effect. So there's workarounds. There's always workarounds, and sometimes it takes talking to others. Sometimes it takes sitting down with somebody that and saying, hey, I've got this situation, and I'm at this point with it where I don't know what's next. And if you've got, like, I'm a good editor is somebody who'll see all of the ingredients in the soup and know how to just say, well, you're just missing some of the spice. That's all that's missing here is a little sprinkle of salt or something that gives it, that ties it all together. That's a good editor. A bad editor is one that just feels the need to constantly make alterations of things along the way. Those are the editors that I can't stand. But if you can figure out, somebody that you trust and value that you can talk to and say, I've got A, B, C, D, and I don't know what's next. And that person can go, well, if you try something like E next and it ties together A, B, C, D, and then, because that helps me. That helps me at times. Because it can go really weird, right? It can go really weird sometimes when you're playing and you're experimenting, and then what's next? I don't know. How do I tie this together? I did a thing at the start of the year. I don't know if anybody remembers this, but at the start of the year, I started posting a continuous story, page after page after page. And then on page 15, I think it was 15, maybe 16, I don't remember. I think it's 15. But on page 15, I very, very tidily put that to an end. And so they could get on and doing other things. Like very tidily, I just, tidy, in a very tidy way, that's it. Now I'm on to my next thing. And somebody got really mad at me about it because they were enjoying the fact that I was doing a multi-page story on a daily basis instead of just doing one-page stories. And for them, they're like, oh, this is exciting. I get to, it's each day there's a new installment of this story. And I like where it's going, and I'm really excited to see what's next. And then page 15 hit, and they're like, why would you do that to us? I didn't mean anything by it. I just, in my mind, I can come back to it tomorrow and pick up on, page 16, because I already have, the one thing I know I have is I know what the overall plan was. And the overall plan was that it accounts for why there's 15 pages, and then, and then we go into a gear change. And the next however many pages is something different but connected, right? It's just, it really, well, when are you going to do it? And I'm like, I don't know. So I got tied up since then with some commission work and some projects, and so we'll get back to it. Okay, so let's go back to this. If anybody has a one-page suggestion they want to throw at me for today, please feel free to do so, and then we'll start working on that. Otherwise, I'm going to just go into book. Great, good job. I've already made a mess of my paper. That's all right. We're good with that. So the 4 panels that I have are 20 by 40. This is clearly exaggerated. Maybe they're not. Yeah, well, whatever. Doesn't matter. I could figure out the stretch of the images. It doesn't. But the idea of this is to just try to come up with some different ideas of how we can progress a story across 4 separate panels. I started drawing a line between, putting a little space between. some of the panels. Well, this one's not going to work so much, but there you go. Said Dave Matthews is singing space between. Anyhow, doesn't matter. So 1, 2, 3, 4 is our panels that we have. I'm going to paint this in acrylic. They're going to be connected images, but so here's the idea. We can do story over time, right? So, and what I mean by story over time in this sense of action 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Or we can do connected images, right? And then of course, again, in every one of these instances, whatever's happening is going to cross the 4 panels. But story over time means each of those panels can be subjectively completely different, situations, completely different scenarios. It's not the same as having the 4 images linked in one background or inked in one larger situation, but you've got 4 occurrences. That's why I separate those two. Marsh is a prompt from today. Here it is. Okay, we'll write it down. I got paper. It's okay to have your own thoughts. Well, there you go. See, I think one of the challenging things about doing the 1-page stories is that with the suggestion that comes in, somebody might be considering, this is the perspective. You got mad scientists, in a subway inventing useless things. And, my first thought is to put it in a subway restaurant. They're talking about a subway underground. Like it even says under the city streets. But I honestly considered having somebody walking down the stairs in the subway and then going into a subway area, and then there's a couple of restaurants in there. Do you know what I mean? Before you go down to the subway level and get on a train. And I thought about putting a subway restaurant in there, but that extra leap of you go down the stairs and then there's some restaurants on that level and then you go down lower for the train. That's just one extra piece of nuisance that I put into it. So I just thought, I'm going to have some fun with just focusing on the guys and the fact that they invent stupid things. So, but okay, it's okay to have your own thoughts. This is fun. This is good fun in the sun. So, I got some different colored markers, and we're just going to start playing with throwing some images down on here. So, it's okay to have your own thoughts is today's suggestion. And let's start off with, Socrates. Right? Let's do the Socratic method. Let's read off the hop, put that into place. So I'm going to draw Socrates. Thinking dude. It's a Bill and Ted reference there, folks. So here we've got, so I'm just roughing it in yellow. Hopefully everybody can see this okay. Thank you for the suggestion, by the way, Marsh. All right, so here's let's put some of his students sitting in bleachers, all listening to him. We can have them in different poses. Always got to have one leaning back. Always. There's always somebody who's got fantastic posture. So here's a bunch of guys listening in. And we'll put them in Roman Street. We'll put the central channel down the road for sewage. That's what they did. Or is that the Indus Valley culture I'm thinking of? And then we'll um, put some columns and so forth. We'll set the scene. We'll put some columns in around them. And I'm going to take our rough out here, and we're going to add something more to it, tie it together a little more clearly. There we go. So, all right, let's start with these guys. Let's start picking and choosing some of their details here. So here's one guy. Here's the next one, hands on knees. Feet sticking out. This guy's got his head on his hands. Boring. One more there. And then we'll have his arm up here. Second arm there as he's sitting off to the side. Okay, so here's our characters in the background coming together, and they're all sitting on some kind of bench behind them. And then our streets are going to be made of cobbles. Cobbles. Stones, cobblestones. There's a great Reeves and Mortimer sketch that they used to do called Fun, Fun, Fun. And the one guy is always saying, hey, everybody, we're going to have some real fun today. It's 6 a.m. We got kicked out of our lodgings because my friend's crazy. And then while he's saying this, the guy in the background goes, oh, we're going to pull up some cobbles today. Everything he thinks about is so childlike, but so incredibly destructive. And he goes, yeah, that sounds like a really fun idea. Let's do some of that. It's like, I love things like that. Now they sort of sit in your mind, and it's a well done sketch if you think about it years and years later. So here he is in his sandals, and we've got his hand, and stinky robes. There's just something about just thinking about these ancient philosophers. I tend to think that they stink. I don't know why. I just do, even though that there's all kinds of evidence of public baths and things like that. And so here's his other hand. Oh, I have an idea. It's almost like it's a eureka moment. Anyways. And we'll give him his beard. Looking up. So the reason that I'm starting with the philosopher is that I thought, it's a good example of when somebody has some position that they think, clearly, I believe the universe exists this way. And, we're finding out the more we study history, a lot of the things that we take for granted as being original to a certain time and place, we're finding out more and more that that's just not the case, right? Here, let me get the camera on the road since I'm bouncing all around. So here's our first notion is our Colosseum. No, I guess it's not a Colosseum, it's more of an open area where he's hypothesizing, because I'm not going to have anything sitting on the top of these covered columns. I just think it's fun to put them in the background, just add something to it all. And just to clarify a little bit about the foreground, I will put in some dark brown around our character so that it enhances him and pulls them off the background. So there's our So whatever the idea that he comes up with here is less important than the fact that it's going to tie in to later. So I haven't really considered what could his great hypothesis be. But what we're going to do is we're going to try to example other people passing this on over time. And then take it into a really weird direction by the end. So hopefully people are able to understand what these scribbles are. So there's that boy. So I'm just going to use this darker value. These are these earth tone markers that I'm using. There we go. And I'm going to do the same thing to separate these guys from their background. And then we'll do one more, separating the columns from the sky and behind. So here's our first swing. What do we got? Hey, you doing, Malcolm? Welcome aboard. Salty. So our first one is the philosopher. So our next one, so here's an idea. I thought maybe what we could do is have a couple of people talking. Like I'm going to have, and this is, here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to have a peasant and some Roman legionnaires. How's that? And we'll have them shoveling. So here's his foot on the shovel as he's digging. And then we'll have the Roman legionnaire standing beside him with his big shield. Skirt, gotta give these guys skirts. All right, we'll add to this in a second. So the idea is this. So we're going to pass on the idea. It's okay to have your own thoughts. Is the whole suggestion, which is it's a great suggestion. Thank you once again for that, Marsh. So in our second one, we're going to have this character who's shoveling away here and working on building this road, and there's another person who's guarding him, and this guy's yakking and saying, well, so here's, and he's expressing the same idea as our first one. Now when we put this to text, of course we can add in all kinds of fun little characterizations like, you came up with that though? Oh yeah, of course I did. Yeah, but seriously, you thought that up? Oh yeah, it's all mine. Just, why not? So here's this other leg bent. So whether it's a Roman period thing or not, I'm not entirely sure yet, but we're getting the gist of the idea down. Just for the time being, though, I'll make him Roman-esque in this big chest piece. His skirt. These dudes wore skirts. Anyways. to give him his helmet. Where are we at? Missing stuff? No, I'm still there. Okay. So, yeah. We'll cut this guy out from the dude in behind him. Yeah, there we go. So there's that guy. And then we can figure out maybe in the background a couple of hills, like so. And they're building a road. And so I can put all kinds of people doing road building bits of business all throughout. Yabba dabba do. All right. So next up. Maybe a wall. Maybe they're building a wall. Either way, we get the idea. So let's see. What could we do next? Anybody got any ideas? It's okay to have your own thoughts. Yeah. I know where I'm taking it. I know where I'm going to go. I'll just get right there. Let's go right there. So here's our water cooler. I don't know if it needs. People still use these water cooler machines like this, or is it all internally built now? So my thought's to have somebody in the foreground as well. There we go. Okay, so maybe we'll have this. Yeah, let's do this. That awful ceiling in an office. Okay, so this is somebody standing at a water cooler blathering on with this person's idea, and you've got somebody rolling their eyes like, oh. And then here's somebody sitting in their chair, looking over at them. As this person standing there and pontificating. I think, blah, 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 blah. So this is where we're going with it. Oh, I know. I know what my thought was for the third one now. I've got it. There was a movie called Office Space, and there's this one guy who always shows up at your desk and goes, we're going to need you to put a cover letter on that T4 submission that you're putting in there, that T4 report or whatever it is. Yeah, so, oh, okay. Yeah, sorry, I forgot I didn't put that. He goes, yeah, so just next time if you can just do it. Yeah, okay, I got it. Because, when we don't have those T4s and they just go on, oh, worst. There's always that guy in an office. Okay. And then we'll do the never-ending cubicles in the background. So this is one fun way we can approach this. So in this one, I know what I want to do now, and that is, so we've got, here he is coming up with the idea. Here some guy is, 300 years later, espousing the same idea. But what I thought I'd do here is have a director and a cinematographer filming a scene where, we've got the camera all set up and recording the scene of the actors in the foreground. And then here'll be our director. I think I want to have him standing with his hands on his knees. I'll figure that out as I get closer to it. But and then we've got two people yakety yakking. A little Harry Met Sally moment type thing. One of those rom-coms where they suddenly have this piece of genius dialogue but in a really dumb movie. We'll have a house in the background on fire. Why not? Let's paint some different colors. Okay, so here's our third. Give a Ron Howard hat. There you go. And then there's our cinematographer. Hopefully that looks like a guy up in a crane or whatever those things are, where the person is moving around through the space. And here's, what is that person's? Bradley Pitt. Here's your Bradley Pitt. And Winona Judd. I don't know. Here they are acting the scene. And then in our background, we'll have the house is on fire. And they're having a good old-fashioned argument right in front of it. So there we go. So there's us putting together our idea to be spread across the 4 images. I think I need more people back here. All the people that stand back behind the action. Just to have more. Somebody else's foot. There we go. And then we'll have this. I can't believe you left the oven on. Honey, it was my first time cooking. All right, so there's our 4 points. So it's okay to have your own thoughts, is our suggestion from Marsh. And So we've got our philosopher, Greece, and then we've got our Roman peasant, and then we just jump. Oh, you know what I can do? I can have this be a film. Yeah, let's do that. Let's have him be a Roman soldier in the film set, and then office cooler. And so in each one of those panels, we can have the same idea being expressed across 4 different settings. And then this guy. So there's our 4 spots. Yeah, okay. So yeah, I hope you can see all of that. So what is the idea? Oh, how about, I think the title of it's the idea. There we go. So there's our idea. So we can have it espoused in different ways, right? I'll figure out the Latin is, but yeah, this is fun. This is fun. I think I like this. I think that this is something that I'll work on finishing up a little more tightly. That's a fun one. Let's try something different though. Let's do a different one. I'll make 4 more panels. Let me move this up. There we go. We got 4 more panels in that we can put in the frame here now. Perfect. There we go. All right. So let's do 4 more. Let's take an idea and spread it over the 4. Again. Let's do it again. Does anybody have any suggestion for a setting or a scene? Because I'm easy like Sunday morning. I'm putting things underneath so I can hold it up. All right. How about, yeah, we'll do space fight. How's that? So I have some pilots sitting in chairs. And then there's the captain pointing at their map. Okay, and so the whole idea is here is that he'll be telling him, you know, it's okay to have your own thoughts. You gotta, when you're flying, when you're fighting the enemy, go with it. Do a barrel roll. Barrel rolls are good. So hopefully this is making sense for folks. I'm going to illustrate this in a different way. And then we'll put other people in the background behind the captain. There we go. So there he is saying, hey, go with it. Have your own thoughts. Play around with it. You're in the spaceship. You're fighting the bad guys. Trust your instincts. And So let's have our next one where somebody's climbing onto their airplane. And we'll have, let's put it right there. We'll have his lady friend saying, "Be safe, Bobby. Don't worry, Loretta. I got this." There's your Luke Skywalker moment. Make sure I'm not missing anything. And so here he is climbing. Who takes ladders in the future? Hey, let's have a thumbs up. Thumbs up. I love me some thumbs up. All right, so here he is getting in his big old aerial plane, space aerial plane. Okay. So there's our number 2. And here's our guy here. So when you're quick sketching out ideas, I tend to find it helps to make a little, do a couple little things to make sense of some of the shapes that you're putting down, because you might not understand what it was that you were drawing earlier if you don't. So there's the top of a space zinger. She says, "Be careful." That's okay. I got an idea. There he goes. So now I'm drawing him flying. In his cockpit here. All right. That doesn't make any sense at all, I'm sure, but give me a sec. Speaking of thumbs up, thanks for giving thumbs up to Christopher. Thank you, Linda. All right, so here's our guy. I'm drawing him upside down. Hopefully this makes sense to folks. And so the idea with this one would be somebody shouting, "Pull up!" Instead of trusting himself, he's listening to somebody. So, typical command maneuver. Everybody do it this way. Just go with it. Go with your gut. Follow your instincts. We want you to make your own choices. And then he starts shouting, "Pull up, pull up, pull up." And then, of course, the last one will be boom. Why? Because he didn't listen to his own thoughts. He didn't trust his instincts. There we go. We got 2 different versions of the same thing. Boom. You didn't listen. Instincts. I've got this, babe. Yeah. Pull up. Boom. Sometimes it's okay to have your own thoughts. Sometimes it's not. All right. Well, there we go. We got two different versions of the same kind of an approach. Um, yeah, something's fun and silly for a moment there. Yeah, so sometimes figuring out different ways to lay out stories for yourself, sometimes different ways to lay out projects really can really help you to grab an understanding of your story. Um, this is just connecting. So this is a linear development. This is a linear development. The difference is, guy says, trust your instincts. The boss says, trust your instincts. The pilot says, I've got this, babe, to his partner. The commander is shouting, pull up, and while he's trusting himself in a barrel roll or whatever he's doing here. And of course, it leads to disaster. But it's pretty straightforward, 1, 2, 3, 4, as far as it goes for a sequence. Whereas this one has a little bit of play in it. We got an ancient philosopher comes up with an idea, and then this guy's just sort of, this would be a lot easier if, we both shoveled. Yeah, it would be. And then we go to a film set where, they're filming this type of a drama. And then somebody is talking about the movie they saw the night before, and they made a really interesting point in it. So it's, the expression of an idea through time, but we switch around in the context of it a little bit. And that to me is a little more interesting than this. This is pretty ABCD, whereas this is a little bit of play in it. So I think, of the two, I would be more akin to that. But, just playing with some thoughts, just playing with some ideas. I'm going to do a different kind of a rough up and to try to figure out a little bit about how I would approach this if I was going to do it in a more sophisticated way, like if I was going to paint it, or I might just tidy all of this up and do it as a one-page story and still play around with some ideas about these 4 canvases. I'm not sure yet. But, anyhow, there we go. All right, well, I am going to call it a little early today because I have an appointment. And I'll be spending lots more time in the upcoming weeks doing some stuff with some different stream times. I'll be letting people know when those are going to be. I'm going to pre-book some things. But in the interim, I will be back tomorrow, let's say 1 o'clock. Let's say 1 o'clock tomorrow. I'll do a stream. In the meantime, try this. Go and try to break some stuff down. Right? Stay open to whatever ideas pop into your head. Allow those to play through into the notions, that you might have in the moment, and try to work them into your compositions. Work them into your stories. Linda says, great thoughts today. Thanks, everyone, for coming by. Thank you very much. Linda, the moderator with the most. Says, thanks, everybody who took part in chat. Thank you, Marsh, for your idea. And thanks, everybody, for coming and hanging out. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now. Go make something.